besides that issue, the legal bills for the month were $2,500.
How much was that issue?
About 7.
7,000 for the appeal, but it's incomplete.
Well,
Has it been submitted?
oh yeah, no, it's complete, it's submitted and everything. Yes,
Okay.
but the overall general was 2588 for everything else.
Okay.
So I didn't know what to do with it, Jim. I have it. You can have it with the wrong numbers on it, but I didn't know if you wanted it. Do you want it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, let's hold it till next month, I guess, if that's, see if we can get those bills. I don't understand why it takes so long to crank out a bill. mean,
Yeah.
They submit the hours, they get paid for the hours. Why in the world does it take so long to get a bill together?
We'll work on that.
Okay.
Have we sent checks to them this all along, or do they bill like once a year or once a
Well,
quarter?
they bill once a month, it's just that it comes in so daggone late, and this is our financial statements. half
This
the
is the
time.
previous month.
And our financial statements are actually later than most, because we put them off until, he doesn't have to have them done until the fourth Wednesday, or fourth Monday.
Right.
For most. All right, let's see if we can get some, ask them to give us a break on that.
All right.
There are no audit adjustments in this, that's correct? That's what I got back, and it looks like that came from David?
Dave, that's correct.
Okay. If there's no audit adjustments, these should really be, we should let the council know that these are draft versions. They're not stamped draft,
Okay.
but they are draft because there might be audit adjustments. And if there are, we have to redo the financial statements. So we'll just make that point
I'll make that.
while we're talking about it. Okay. If you guys don't mind, let's go through these unanswered questions that we now have answers for. Is that, so we'll start in May. Davoo, we apparently had a golf outing at Davoo, and we booked the deposit as an expense. And I don't know that it's been reversed. He said he'll check it out the next time he was here, but it's already gone through audit.
He said it has been, oh, it hasn't been reversed.
No, he says he'll check on it. He said he'd check on it next time he's in.
Okay.
It's already been through audit, so if it has, it's gonna be a prior period, if it hasn't, it's gonna be a prior period adjustment. And this one is unanswered, this whole issue on Rigney Park.
For some weird reason, and I can't answer that question, to be honest with you. Last year, we had put money into Parks and Rec for Rigby Park.
Right,
No, Public Works, excuse me. It was in the Public Works line item. If you went back and looked, it was in the Public Works for some reason.
well, it was a miscellaneous, because we didn't know what to do with it, right? It was $15,000.
Correct.
That she put in the budget at the end of last year. Okay,
Yep, and that's why this year we ended up, I think they followed the lead, and I probably led that lead, that we were paying for that stuff out of Public Works last year, so we did the same thing. Even though I agree with the question, I think it should be in Public Works, and we'll end up moving it.
well, there's a potential budget amendment coming up. That would be the appropriate time, we could move the budget and move the actual at the same time.
And that's what I was kind of
Only if
thinking.
we do that budget amendment, because that, I mean, we don't wanna upset the apple cart if we don't have to. I don't wanna do this all
Right.
at once.
Right.
We'll talk about the budget amendment in a minute. Miscellaneous, there was a miscellaneous revenue debit entry in May, and I never did get an answer on that.
Dave's gonna look into that the next time he's
He's
in.
gonna look into that as well, okay.
Miscellaneous.
And the field permits were posted to, I just wanna make sure that all these field permits end up in the same line item, because they were getting mixed up.
More of a comment than anything then?
Yeah, just to
Okay.
make sure we get, and after it goes through audit, honestly, it doesn't make a whole lot of difference once we close out the year, so I'm not sure that matters, but for next year, assuming that we do this again to pay for play, let's make sure we get it all in one place. In June, the loan collective will reverse to prior year outstanding year end. David's comment was he doesn't understand why we have uncollectible anyway if we're able to lien the projects at some time, or lien the
Property?
property at some time in the future. But we're always gonna have uncollectibles, so I'm not sure I understand his comment. I mean, just because we can lien it doesn't mean we're gonna collect it.
Correct, I mean, we've been there, we just lost them because it was after 10 years, 11 years that we couldn't go back any further.
Right.
Now, that's not, as long as I'm sitting here, we're not gonna be doing that, we're gonna be going after them on a regular basis like we should be, but, I mean, it is possible to go back and not be able to collect them.
Well, the only thing I'd say about that, if you look at this, at the current balance sheet, the allowance for uncollectible is actually higher than the prior year receivable. So I don't know how we got to that point. It's a little unusual. So I guess he's gonna go through that and reconcile it at the audit anyway, so we should be. Hopefully, we can ask some of these questions of John. John is gonna be there Wednesday? Or John, or
It'll be John.
you'll be John? Okay, you can ask those questions on Wednesday.
I don't think that the 2013 taxes have been rolled to prior year yet because we haven't issued the new taxes yet. That'll be coming up next week.
They don't roll it year in? They only roll when you issue the next year's?
No, I don't have the answer to that question, but my thought would be that if we probably are running more delinquents from 2013 than we are from prior to 2013.
But none of these are marked delinquent yet. These are current year. The current year uncollected is somewhere around $11,000. But if you look at the prior year receivable, it's $6,797. If you look at the allowance for uncollectible prior year, it's $7,997. You can't accrue the uncollectible for more than what you actually have out there to collect. So I think we just need an adjustment on that. We'll probably make that adjustment as part of the audit, I guess.
Is that also is that part of the uncollectible, the allowance for uncollectible being a negative 8,000, is that partly due to sewage and garbage possibly?
But it's all of the receivable is also in that prior year number. Well, we'll
Okay.
work it out. It's not by that much, but we need to figure out what we're doing with that uncollectible. In July, we had huge increases in revenue and vehicle license fee, KMA, and police incentive. Craig, this is your response. Do you want to speak to that?
Sure. The vehicle license fee is probably the easiest to explain. We were collecting 2 months at the same time, and that's why that number was high. We were collecting our last check from the county for the prior year, or prior month. At the same time, we started collecting in-house for the current month. Usually, if the county clerk had continued to collect those, we wouldn't have realized that revenue until the month after she finished collections. So that's where we got the bump on vehicle license fee. On KMA,
Can I follow up question?
Sure.
When do you put out the notice that they owe us money for their car?
6 weeks out.
I'm sorry, the initial notice, to let them know they needed to give us $40.
6 weeks out. So if it's from the end of the month. So they usually go out the middle of the month before. So if somebody owes,
6 weeks in advance.
right.
Okay, so that's how we could get 2 months in one. All right, okay.
And there was also with this one, Jim, it happened to be the county. The county's last
Right.
paycheck came in
Got it.
from them.
As far as KMA, when we were doing the August numbers, Dave and I noticed that the telecom tax had not been posted in the prior month and that we had revenue. And so when we looked back, it appeared that the telecom money from Frankfurt had been inadvertently posted into KMA because it was a check from Frankfurt. And so those were both adjusted out. So that's now reflected on the August statement. The accurate amount is
So
reflected.
it was a simple reclass that we balanced to the bank, we just had it in the wrong account.
Correct.
Okay. And then you said need to check on police incentive?
Yes, just taking a look at police incentive and the officers we have that qualify, the amount that was booked is well in excess of the check that we received. So something else got in there, and we gotta figure out what that is. And I don't know what it is at this point.
But we still reconcile to the bank. So it's simply a classification issue again. It's
And
not,
or they sent us too much money for some weird, stupid reason. But our book's balanced.
Yeah.
Would that be a fair statement?
Well, I received a check for $1,600 for police incentive, for August. And
It's
we got
normally,
booked more than that, so there's something else that got in there.
So something else.
oh,
is
something else got
the
booked in there,
account.
not the tip.
Something else got in there,
But we do have a bank reconciliation for July.
yes.
Okay. Okay. All right, now we're moving on to August. My first comment was that sticker fees continue to be strong, so somebody must be doing that work, so the staff ought to be complimented for that.
Amen.
Thank you.
So, I mean, I know this isn't easy and I know it's messy and ugly. In terms of being able to accommodate that, are we still above water on that?
Barely. I've noticed that workflow and admin has slowed down. Our ability to get to other projects is delayed, somewhat because we're spending so much time at the front window. Right now, we're still able to get to everything, it just takes us a little bit longer than what we'd like. The issue's gonna be once we let go of a property tax next week.
Yeah.
At that point, I think we're gonna have issues.
Do we have a plan in place?
Right now, we're reviewing the budget numbers. I've had a conversation with our part-timer to see if she can pick up more hours, and in absence of that, we'll look for temporary help.
All right, I'm gonna ask this question on Wednesday,
Okay.
so I think the council will need to know, hear that answer. Okay, and I asked about the insurance tax because it seems very high, but apparently this is for premiums billed prior to 7/1/14. We have yet to collect that first insurance premium that has the additional 2% on it. So we'll keep asking that question every month until we get to the point where we're collecting the 7 as opposed to the 5%. Sale of equipment was a vehicle. Was that the old police vehicle? Is that what that was?
That was the Durango for $1,000.
Okay.
Thing you couldn't get in and out of. You had to go outside and get a door open, and
Well, there must have been 710 for something else then.
I forget what it was. 710.
1710 was what was the total of it?
So that must have been for
That was the second cruiser.
the second cruiser.
Second cruiser. I'm sorry. That was the second
That
cruiser.
was the second Crown Vic.
Yeah, that was the second Crown Vic.
Okay.
The other one will probably come in soon then, if it hasn't already.
Okay, I asked about postage. It seemed really high. You
Yeah.
said that you bought stamps for tax bills and vehicle fee invoices and delinquent notices to get us through December. Okay. Fair enough. Contractual, we had two payments for council in there apparently. So then there won't be one in September, is that,
That's my understanding, yes.
okay.
Because the entire September 3rd check run was, payroll run was just applied to August. Because there was only the, 1 day.
Okay. All right. Parks and Rec, are we okay on that budget for the salary on that one? Did we?
I think so, Jim. We looked at it the other day, and we think we're gonna be real close. I mean, because of the amount of months and everything else, we should be fine.
Is he still working through September?
No, he
No, he ended in
August
August.
30th.
Okay. And do we have fall ball? Or we have,
Yes,
we do have fall ball.
yes.
We've had some fall ball, not like summer ball, but, or whatever you call it, but it's not near as extensive, and the guys have been able to keep up with, for the most part, keeping the field.
So
maintained.
Public Works is just filling in?
Yep.
Okay. The maintenance was extremely high in police, and I asked about vehicle 127, which apparently was the crux of the problem.
Mhm.
It's an Explorer, it needed a new exhaust system, catalytic converter, starter, rotors, calipers. Was there anything original on 127? Or did we replace the entire vehicle?
I think we're working on replacing the entire vehicle.
Okay. So the
Oh.
seats are original equipment?
I think that's about it, and I think they would prefer that they not be.
Well, is that one we should be looking at to get rid of?
Well, I've had this conversation with Chief Allen, and And with the increased number of officers that we have now, we're really in a pinch to hold on to vehicles for the moment. Not necessarily because they're, you know, we don't have them, it's just that we'd like to have a spare. And there are times when we do have 3 officers on duty, and if they happen to all be 3 part-timers, we wouldn't have a vehicle to put everybody in if we were to move 127 along.
That's still up for this discussion though, Jim.
How many vehicles are there?
Well, it used to be 9, are there still 9, or did we get rid of one?
No, we got rid of one, so.
Eight.
Yeah, you got 8 vehicles, how come there's not 3 vehicles for any certain time that,
We have
Because of
6.
home fleet, 6 of them are home fleet.
why do we
5
do
of them are
that?
home fleet.
Is that cheaper or?
Generally, yeah, generally, in the long run, home fleet cuts down on your maintenance and wear and tear on your vehicle so they last longer. And it's considered a nice perk for the officers.
There's only one other city in the northern Kentucky that does not, and that's Fort Thomas, to my understanding.
Really, to stay competitive, we have to have, I think we have to
Okay.
have home fleet.
Well, then should we just go ahead, like if this was such a beast, if it's taken, maybe should you buy a new one?
Well, we got a new one on order already, and that's where the debate comes in, whether or not we're gonna keep this one or one of the other ones when the new one comes in. And
Well, if somebody wants their,
somebody wants to keep it, and they're gonna take some
That's what I
convincing of me. But, up for good conversation.
And we asked Covington to do it because the county couldn't, it looks
Right,
like.
at one point, there was one day we actually had 3 vehicles down on the same day, and we needed to get the vehicles back, and Covington was available.
Okay.
The chief using a little bit of contact down there to get them slid in, and as long as they're competitive rates and do the same work.
Okay, and uniforms are very high. I asked if that was new officers, you said yes, new officers. The Public Works, we already talked about Rigney a little bit. How much did we have budgeted for this? I thought we had 15 budgeted, we're well over that, aren't we?
I'm gonna say we're about 21,
Yeah, that's what I thought.
my guess. And the 21 would have been more for some of the things like the mulch and stuff like that that we didn't have initially when the project was put out. So,
Is that a final, are we done with it?
as far as I know, it's been seeded, strawed, everything's done. I expect things to happen down the road, some other things come up, but, I mean, those are gonna be amenities. I mean, I'd like to get a couple benches up there somewhere, but that's not the actual, what we've done. And I think we even have some benches to reinstall, so,
is any of that the drainage or is that all for the equipment?
that's equipment, I think. Equipment and the, the
Right,
structure of
right,
it,
not-
yeah.
Is that a new swing set too, or is that,
Yeah, all new swing set, it's got 4 swings.
Yeah.
4 swings, and then the jungle gym.
we drove by the road, I didn't go up to it.
Was that the $14,000 or $15,000? Does that include the benches and all that kind of stuff, or not?
No, that 14,000, it was actually, I forget what the exact number was, but for the playground equipment, the mulch, the what we call Allen blocks and the caps that go around it to actually create the barrier to keep the mulch and everything like that, that's all part of that 15.
15.
It actually come up to about 21, excuse me.
21,000.
And again, the benches and stuff are things that we do as we go along, not like we have to keep getting them. If we don't have it, we don't get them.
Okay.
I asked about state distributors, I've never heard of that, but apparently it's for taser battery replacements. On Officer Ward, he's mentioned specifically on the cash disbursement, so I asked if we have receipts, and the answer is yes. And we're gonna continue to ask that on any individual that we give a check to. That is not a payroll check. I mean, that's,
It's expenses.
Expense, right?
yeah, we gotta ask that question. Cash disbursements, Ohio police officer training, we needed an evidence room manager, and these are accredited in Kentucky as well as Ohio, right? The only thing I was asking about was the Ohio police officer training thing.
Yeah, the training that was received in Ohio will help us and count towards our accreditation. What it will not do is count towards the officers' 1 week of training that's required in Kentucky. So they'll still need to go get, their 40 hours.
There was nothing available in Kentucky, I take it.
That I don't have the answer for. That's a question for Chief Allen.
That was actually up in Cincinnati, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, just across, but
But is that training over and beyond what the accreditation is for Kentucky? I mean, the
This was just
evidence-
normal, regular, other type of training, besides the
Right, that's what I'm saying.
mandated
It's-
training.
So
Yes.
in other words, by having that training, will our insurance thing or whatever we have to
Yes, it
be
will help.
accredited will be better?
it'll help, yeah. And both of the people who we had that were evidence room trained left within 5 months of each other, so
Okay, so now we're gonna have how many people trained in that?
2. We always have 2.
Okay, is one of the chief?
No,
One of them-
Should one of them be the chief?
I don't believe
I
so.
don't believe so, and that chief wasn't one before, and that's actually, I think it was Jim Wendell and Joe Schitzman, and then they
It was
changed it.
Birch and Schutzman.
Birch and Schutzman, or
which
whatever.
then became Wendell and Schutzman.
Yeah,
now
so
it's
they,
Wendell
the
and-
chief was never actually involved with the
Correct.
correct, if you will. So,
I was just wondering if the chief should be, being that hopefully he's gonna be here for the long run, and, you know, a lot of guys that are part-time or whatever, they may wanna move on to bigger police departments.
but the full-time guys are the ones that are being trained as the evidence locker room, not the part-timers.
I understand that, but I'm saying, should the chief be one of them? 'Cause
That's a
we're hoping
question
the
that I
chief-
think needs to be asked of chief, and it's just basically more along the lines of protocol and what's expected.
Let me ask you a question on this mileage and stuff. When they, I saw one on here, it was $300 and some, we went to some training, and it said mileage and whatever, 50.5 cents, whatever the rate is.
54, whatever it is,
Yeah, whatever
yeah.
the rate is right now.
Mhm.
Was that just for his mileage for him to go back and forth, or was there meals or something included in on that, or?
If it said mileage, my understanding is that would be just the mileage. I mean, EKU is where a lot of the Kentucky
Okay,
training
well-
happens, and that's in Richmond, so it's 100+ miles.
My
one-
point, and here's what I'm getting to, is it cheaper in that case, rather than paying him mileage, let them have a cruiser and take down there and go to their training and come back? Then
Typically,
you're only
that's,
paying for gas rather than paying the 50.5 cents a mile for.
typically that's what we do, but when you got vehicles down.
Why did, I'm
get
just
pitched.
asking.
No,
I'm
yeah,
just
no,
asking.
you're right, because our policy states that first choice is to use a city vehicle.
Okay,
Is that not correct?
That's correct.
If my memory's correct. The first choice is to use the city vehicle,
I
so
know,
we use that
I'm very
expense.
familiar with these
Back
things.
up.
And the officer in question was a part-timer, so the officer in question doesn't have
Okay.
a vehicle.
I'm just saying, you know, if we're not doing that, maybe we ought to look at that, that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying, is because, you know, it would've cost maybe
Third of the
30
cost.
or 40 bucks in gas to go down there and come back versus $300 some that we paid here.
I'm really more concerned about this Ohio thing. Well, that's 40 hours of training that we paid for and needed, no question. But if we did that in Kentucky, that would have been 40 hours that he wouldn't have had to take this
Yeah.
year.
No, not
Well, I
necessarily,
don't,
no.
well, I don't know how many hours of training that was. I was just making the point that that training, whatever it was,
It
wouldn't
doesn't
count
count
towards
towards
the
his
Kentucky
40 hours
40.
of mandated training.
Just doesn't count towards the Kentucky 40. I don't know exactly how many hours that was.
Okay, fair enough. But I mean, as a rule, do we normally send people to Ohio for training?
No, generally most everybody goes to
Okay, so there
EKU.
was a reason that we did this time.
Right.
We think, okay. Adopt a Troop, they spent $2,600 in August, according to this thing, where their account went down $2,600. I know that we are not writing their checks, or.
Yeah, we are writing.
We're not
Right.
approving their checks, but we need to have some kind of documentation on
We
what was in
don't,
there.
we don't write them a check unless they bring a receipt back. They don't get cash out of this city building unless they get it, I have a receipt in front of me.
So you have something that shows $2,577.20.
If that's what it is, yes. Yep.
Sue's on vacation. I just haven't had a chance to get with her because she maintains those.
But yes,
And I'm not asking for the documentation, but I wanna know,
Just wanna make sure we have it.
somebody has it.
yeah, they have to bring back, most of the time the process is, like, Janie Terrell will send an email. Hey, Sue, I'll be in a couple days, can you cut me a check for this, and I have my receipts with me. You got your receipts, we have no problem.
Okay. 'Cause
Yeah.
I didn't know of anything that went out this month, that's why I'm asking the question. I mean, and maybe they bought armor that they're sending them, I don't know.
I forget what was going on.
Shop with a Cop, their balance went up in August. That's weird,
Did it go up a lot, Jim?
$3,921.69.
Went up that much?
That's what it says.
That's
The
what it
balance
says.
went from $1,300 to $5,200. It just seems weird. It's almost like it got posted to the wrong account or something, because I know there was no collections for Shop With A Cop this month. At least I don't know of any.
There was, when in the process of reorganizing the police department, there was identified a small box with loose change in it that was, fulfill the booth.
Must have been a pretty
But
big
it's not
box.
that amount. There's no way it's
It must have been really heavy.
Yeah. Had to get a wheelbarrow to move it.
We will have to look at that one,
Would you
Jim, I don't
check
know
on
an answer
those
to that.
two?
Yep.
All right. And then I have some anybody else have questions? I'm gonna move to Scott's. His first question said that the baseball league account was now accurate, so I guess that's not a question. He asked about the payroll tax revenue. We typically get payroll tax on a quarterly basis, so the fact that it's much higher than our budget is not surprising, because we never know exactly when we're gonna get that check.
Or how much it's for.
Yeah. The miscellaneous charge of Public Works is Rigney Park, we already talked about that, so, all right. What is Allen Block in caps from Stone Center, Kentucky?
That's the border around the playground equipment to help hold the mulching.
Okay, and I think he made a political comment about the gold plating for the tiny park. So I don't know that we can go any further with that. Okay.
There was also in Public Works, there was I don't know what they used an auger for, but it showed that for maintenance an auger that from ours
Yeah,
that
that's
was
what they
charged to the,
To drill, to bore the holes up, yeah.
okay,
It's $150 or something.
$90-something.
$90, yeah.
Are there any other questions about August? If not, there's been a suggestion made by a council person that we pass a budget amendment to put more, to unrestrict the money that's currently restricted from prior years' rollover of the road money. I have no problem with that, but it's very unusual to pass that this early in the year. So if we want to entertain that, we can have a first reading. It just seems odd to do it now. There's no, the mayor has the authority to spend this money, and I don't know why the budget, unless that person, that council person is thinking that there will be a major change in the council, which there will be. And do we just want to get this handled with the current council people?
That could be the reason, I don't know why, because I don't know, I didn't get a chance to talk to Mary enough about it. It doesn't matter if council changes or I change, in my opinion, because that money's there for the roads anyway.
Well, it's restricted.
Restricted for the roads, yeah. I mean, if she, and I know that
Does she want
Public Works has been,
unrestricted or?
no, just move
They're
it.
moving with the current budget.
It's not in the expense side of the budget.
Oh, okay.
It's only on the cover sheet that says,
Okay. Okay.
carryover from,
Right.
I'm using layman's terms, but it's carryover
It's a
from
carryover from
unrestricted.
years.
It's exactly what it is.
Yeah, carryover, restricted
How much
fund.
is it?
$74,066.
It depends upon where she thinks she's gonna go through the winter and stuff like that. I think, and I have to tell you, the roads committee is gun ho at getting stuff done. I mean, they're getting ready to burn through some serious cash here with road work. Mike
That
was
extra
just,
part gonna happen that they were, talking about at the last meeting?
please,
That extra portion of work that she wanted to get done, because remember the bids came in lower and there's.
yep, she's
So
trying
that was
to,
gonna be an extra amount, right?
right. Well, extra
But it
amount on
wasn't
top
that
of the
much,
bid, not necessarily on top of the budget.
Right.
Yeah, it was just more that we could get done with what we had. But we're also talking about trying to get Rogers Road up here done, as well as I know Michael's is getting ready to start Wednesday with overlays and stuff, and I don't know if she talked about carrying over, and these are rough numbers because I didn't go to the meeting. I don't know if they want to hold 50 or 60,000. You guys might have been at the meeting for salt, and then another 30 or 40 carryover for next year. If that's all they're carrying over, we could start to get into that depending upon where we fall with salt.
Why do we want to carry over for next year?
So they have something to do in the spring.
Oh, next calendar year.
Next calendar year, not,
Okay.
yeah. And
Okay.
we can talk about it, maybe if we get a chance, we'll send her an email to see if she gets more. Or we can go ahead and have a first reading, and if we decide not to have it, we don't have to do it. After she gets back, we'll talk about it at the caucus.
Well, do you want this committee to prepare that kind of budget amendment then? for first reading on Wednesday? Because in effect, well, the only two things I know of are the 74,000 that's currently in restricted, and the question is gonna be put to the auditor, are you saying that we have $74,066 restricted from prior year? And as soon as he answers yes, then we can make a motion to to move that from restricted surplus to restricted
Restricted
available
expense.
for use.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I'd like to do is move that Rigney Park thing, I think.
Well, we have
got
some other
it
things
on the
that
spot.
coming down the road that could be a little bit more challenging, I mean, that we have discovered, that might wanna look at as well. So,
Well, that person that called me, I think is not gonna be at this council meeting, is that correct?
I believe that's correct.
All right, well, I would prefer to wait until that person's available, so.
And I'm fine with that, cause if we need to do it quick, we can do it on a caucus first reading and then have a second reading next month if we want. You know what
Why
I
would
mean?
you have to do it quick? I mean, if we read the first reading in October, we can certainly get it done before the end of this,
Calendar year.
yeah, before the end of everybody's term. So, all right, we'll
Okay,
we'll
yeah, we
delay
can
that.
wait on that. I'm fine. I mean, personally speaking, it's the committee's input, but I don't know why we would have to rush it through.
Okay, anybody got any thoughts on that? I would prefer to push this at least until October. It's really premature. We have to pay to the Cincinnati Enquirer every time we do an ordinance. I prefer to only do one budget ordinance, one
So-
budget amendment.
When you looking at, when do you think you're gonna, if needed, to try to do the budget?
Well, we
amendment?
usually do it in May
October.
for June passage,
Okay.
just because it's the end of the,
Right.
the end of the
Fiscal
fiscal year. So, you know, we could move it up. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. It's just that nobody has a crystal ball. We don't know what else we're gonna come up against, and we may have to do a second budget amendment, which I prefer not to do. But we can discuss it when that person is in council, and then that will, we can get to that at that point. I should have asked this, is there anybody that objects to recommending acceptance of the financial statements as published? And if not, I did review the bills for payment and found that there's nothing in there that needs to be redacted. So I think if it's okay with you guys, we'll recommend acceptance of both the financial statements
What
and
about,
the bills
what
for
about the
payment.
attorney's fees not being
There's nothing you can do about it. We
there?
accrued
But
for
he's
it.
saying we may have to,
How much
Revise
are
it,
the
though.
attorney's fees? I didn't hear that number.
7,000 more, well, they're not 5,000 more than what's in the financial statement, because we accrued 4,000. And you said there's 2,500 that was actual, and then $7,000 for the other thing,
How long of a period was that? Was that a month or 2 months or 3
1
months?
month.
Okay, so are we, on the average a month, what's our attorney fees are averaging?
Well, we budgeted 4,000. It's gonna average more than that for the
Oh.
first few months
For the
of this
first
year.
couple months.
Does anybody have a prediction when that'll be over with?
Clearly, I'm gonna be silent on this issue.
Okay, so we can figure,
It was definitely,
we can figure 6,000 a month for,
I hope not. I hope, we have an issue that we're dealing with that all the council and myself agree that we needed to move forward on. And it was 7,000 of the 9,500. Our last month's regular general attorney's fees was $2,588.
right, but
you can tell me what the issue is, right? You told
It's a
us.
spiking issue, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's dealing with the spiking and challenging whether or not it was properly done or legal and everything else. We decided as a councilman and myself, I think 100%, that we needed to try and fight back to see if we get some of it back. I mean,
if you were gonna, can you give me an idea how much the spiking things cost?
spiking, we got a bill for spiking, it's public knowledge, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
How much?
$210,000.
210,000, and how long we've been fighting this for? It's what, 6, 10 months?
No,
No, we just started.
Just started.
Oh, this
We've not
is-
spent it, this is the first month that we've sent a full-blown appeal down there. This was for the research and everything else that the attorneys had to do to get in there, understand it, they, go through their process and call other cities, because it's obvious, other cities have started getting their bills. And doing the homework to prepare a formal, appeal to the retirement board.
Okay, so far we spent, what, 12,000 bucks, 9,000?
No, seven.
No, just.
7,000.
Yeah,
That's total.
Total
Yeah.
for the spiking.
just to be clear, and maybe to be a little bit political about this, we received this notice a week before the end of our fiscal year end.
Okay?
That's not the way to do this.
Uh-huh.
That's the wrong thing to do. So they put us in a real quandary on what to do with this invoice. So we didn't have any choice but to fight this thing. I mean, first of all, I don't think it's accurate. I think they're basing it on overtime 100%. And there was a change, there were several changes in the police department during this time, and I don't think they're taking any of it into account. So we're going to have to say, guys, you need to look at this again. So we have to appeal it.
Okay, so then I guess basically we're trying to look for a agreement on how much is actually owed, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep,
This will end up being negotiated settlement because we may not be 100% accurate, but I don't think they are either. So somewhere in the middle is probably where we're gonna end up.
And is it the labor board that decides this thing, or?
retirement.
Retirement board? How long do they usually take on cases? Because I'm sure this isn't the first one they had. I mean,
Well, this may be the first one they
This
have.
may be the
Oh,
first
really?
one, yeah, because it didn't go into effect until the beginning of the year.
well, that's what I said,
And the circumstances are unique too.
I just,
Probably
you
to
know,
any city.
if you come up with,
I've heard some weird ones.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's, believe it or not, I think ours is one of the most unique, but I mean, we had a guy over in Edgewood, city administrator, came from another city, went there, naturally got a nice kick in pay, everything else. Well, he ended up having a stroke and had to retire after a long battle. Edgewood got nailed because he went from one position in another city, totally different city, much, you know, and they still nailed them. And that's just an example. I can't fathom why they
They would
would.
probably appeal that too, right?
I think they
Yeah,
are.
they do.
Yeah. So,
Anytime you make a law retroactive, you gotta expect problems.
right,
And that's exactly what they did.
5 years back.
They made us pay for something that honestly, none of us were here. So why, I mean, this is crazy, you know, if you wanna go after somebody, why are you going after the city? We had nothing to do with it.
well, that's the thing, I don't understand if it's gonna cost us $100,000 to fight it in legal fees, or what, I mean, either way. it's
No,
gonna cost
I
us.
don't know. I don't think we'll go that far, you know, but I think that you have to spend money at the beginning, no matter what. I mean, it's part of it. I don't have an answer
We
for
had
that.
to get the appeal filed,
Okay.
because the clock starts on these things when you get the letter.
All right,
So we had to appeal it. I didn't.
30
think-
days, I think it was, or
Yeah, I didn't think it would cost this
60.
much, but, you know, anytime you're dealing with attorneys, you just never know.
well, I was just wondering, I didn't know if the attorney fees would be 25% of what this total is, or 30%, or 40%, or 50%, you know,
I don't-
of how much the settlement
Right,
would be.
it's a,
Well, once we get the response to our appeal, we'll probably have a better idea than what we have right now.
Do you have any idea when that'll be?
It's,
Okay,
No.
so
It's a
it's
state.
very possible that this administration may not be deciding it anyway, right?
almost guaranteed.
All right,
As slow as they move.
Probably.
Yeah, they're-
okay,
out of the 14,000 we've had in legal fees for the first couple months, 7 of it was for that. So for the first 2 months, we spent approximately $3,500 a month, and we budgeted 4,000, with the exception of the one item that we're talking about.
so that's what I was gonna get at too. Normally, our budget for attorney's fees, you know, just like if you had a regular city meeting and all the other stuff that we do, our legal fees are how much a month?
We budget
4,000?
for,
The budget is 50,000 for the year, so it's slightly over 4,000 a month.
Okay,
so we're just a little bit under that right now, which,
Any objection to what I said about accepting the financial statements? Anything else that you wanna bring up?
I do.
You do.
Yes, just a short thing real quick. The sign up there at Valley Trails and Buttermilk there that was destroyed, it was like 18,500. Is this administration, I mean, are they gonna put up the sign, or do you think it'll be?
that's the
next-
goal. After the first of the year, we're gonna actually redo that whole intersection as part of that strip and everything. They're gonna make that island smaller, so we don't wanna go put the sign up until after we really make sure that we feel comfortable with the size of the island. That's the phase that we're at.
And everything that's up there, the new on her sign and everything's gonna go back as is?
I say as is, it'll be on the island something, yeah, and it'll have lights and everything else, yes, without a doubt.
Is that money set aside and restricted or not?
It's not restricted, but it has been set aside. It is, you know, there's 18,000 on a line item in here that we know that ultimately what'll happen is, if I understand it, it's gonna come in as a receipt and then an expense. Technically, I don't think, and I could be wrong because I'm not the accountant over here, but it'll go through our system only to show where it came in and where it went out, but it's not part of our necessarily annual budget because,
Why would the island have to be made smaller than the normal width where? each
well,
road
it makes
is?
it easier to get in and around, especially for fire trucks and stuff, and making the bends and stuff. Because unfortunately, there is parking sometimes there, and it makes it pretty tight.
Well,
And we check with the garden club, try to, you know, everybody, and everybody seems to be on board with it.
I drove a school bus through there and there was plenty of room for that, and that's about as big as a fire truck. I mean, just the way it is. Now, I can understand you taking that one center island out, especially since they put that sign up there. The school buses can't turn there, but
That one is gonna go.
That's an interesting question. Where is that $18,000?
that's what I was wondering. I think it was 18.5.
I have to check, Jim, I mean, I know that we waited to put it in till July 1st, because we got it June 29th, and we didn't wanna,
I'm sure
You know what I
they
mean?
didn't spend it on
It was
Ridley
just
Park.
purchased miscellaneous revenue in July.
Miscellaneous revenue in July. So when we actually do the work, we're gonna reverse that entry and offset the expense.
correct.
Okay. Oh, there it is, okay.
You make me nervous, it's like,
I'm sure about that, thing was
come
18.5.
on, Jim, you're on camera here, man.
It's in there. It's in. Well, I got a bad memory. What are you
No,
gonna do?
no. It's like, man, I'm pretty sure it was in there before, because I thought that was a question, as a matter of fact, if you looked at your questions, it had on there, what's the 18,000 for?
Was it? Oh, yeah, miscellaneous revenue, 18,000. Did he answer that?
I don't think they did until now.
Huh? He's looking into it. Check received for damage to Amsterdam Village sign. How did I not even go over that when we were talking about July?
Well, it should have been off because we had it already, but
Yeah.
we already had the answer.
Too much of that ice cream.
Yeah, it could be. All right, well, thank you all for coming.
Alrighty.
Brian, you gotta work on that, man.
Good job.
That's good.